Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite game of the lamp, and I've got the start of some playing of The Fate of All by Thin Red Line Games. And this is a redo. I had done this video once already, and I had moved around some counters and was doing this and doing that, and realized I was just way off base. So no, I want to make sure. I don't mind making a mistake and occasionally having a little something wrong. I'll leave it in. That way people learn from my goofs and that they don't make their own. But it was fairly substantial. So I was like, okay, let's redo this. Let's start again and do this the right way. And it's like I said in my review, this game is big on how you're waging the war. It is not like other games where, oh, it's your movement phase. You're going to move 6 hexes. It's the end of your movement phase. It's not like that. There's so much going on underneath the hood there that it's almost impossible to just explain it. And you can't just read the rule book. You really need to get into this. So this is scenario A. All right. And not scenario A. This is map A, rather. And the first scenario. So there's the whole campaign, which I don't have set up. I've got the first scenario set up. And I do believe I showed this in my review, but just to show you guys again, we're only concerned with this upper left quadrant. We're not even in all of this. All right. So just this area here is what we're focused on. Smaller forces. And honestly, I really recommend starting here. Get your feet wet. Right before you jump into the deep end of this pool. I would not set up the campaign as a way to really get into this game. You need to move some counters, roll some dice in a small way with less units on the board, and it'll help you kind of grasp that and get your feet underneath it before you go for the full campaign, which is definitely worth it in my opinion still, but there's a lot going on here. All right, one of the things we got going on is, for some reason, they did not include a sequence of play. I think they will add that. They would be dumb not to. My buddy Mo sent me this, and I printed it out. It works fine. You can scan it from the rule book and print out your own. There might be one on BGG now. There wasn't at my time of looking, but I'm sure someone will post one here soon. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, you could write it down if you need to. But just have it somewhere outside of the rule book. For our first little bit, we've got the Fate step, Bribery step, Revolt step. We don't have any of that going on yet. The Bribery and Revolt, we do have the Fate. And for this first scenario, we don't even have all the Fate cards. There's only a limited selection of Fate cards here. And it's a reduced chance of these coming into play. They will only come into effect. You only play one of those Fate cards if you roll a 10 on a 10-sided die. That's it. So 1/10th chance of having a Fate card. So let's roll it. We got an 8, so don't have to worry about it. And like I said, I already did all this first, so we're kind of redoing some stuff. I'm redoing the roll. I'm not redoing my moves over here with the Persians. It took me a second to get the Persians, the mighty Persians over here. Anyway, I'm not redoing all their stuff. I didn't do perfect with them, but I know I did not mess up their supply checks or anything. All their moves were legal. I went and looked back that over. Now, I don't think I did very good decisions with them, but I want to suffer the consequences of my choices that I made over here. So I'm going to let those stand. So the Persians do start, right, in this scenario, and then you go over to the Macedonians. The Macedonians start with more units on the board, but the Persians do have a fair amount that can come into play in their force pool. And that is during this little administration step. So we've got the taxation step, the maintenance step. It's January only. We're not even anywhere near that. That only comes once a year. We are in April. All right. So we're not going to be worrying about that. Now we have recruitment step. I'm not going to do any of that the first turn. I don't even think you're supposed to, but we'll start doing some recruiting on the next turn. Build baggage trains, sea trains, not going to come into it. Now remove depleted markers. You can grab one to show you guys. So a depleted marker is something like this. So if we depleted an area by 1, we would mark it so this 6 would no longer be a 6. It would now be a 5. And that's going to add up, right? So that was my biggest thing in the first video, was trying to find ways to do things without ever having any depletion markers come into it. And the thing of it is, it's actually a lot easier to avoid these depleted markers than I originally thought. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you guys. But if you eat too much off the land, you forage too much, you have too many forces concentrated in one little area, they'll decimate it, right? You know, like a bunch of cattle turn loose, they'll eat everything. And then we've got the same requisition markers, plunder markers, breaches, stuff like that. It's all admin. So that's not going to come into play just yet, but we will have some of that stuff going on. Campaign phase. This is like the move, fight, die stuff. This is where you're really getting into it. So you would start with any sieges. We don't have those yet, obviously, since we're just starting, but we do have the naval assignment step. Now, like I said, bear with me because I've already done the Persians. I didn't do them well, but we're going to leave all those moves there. So we are past the Persian phase, and now we are into the Macedonian turn. So the Persians do all their moving, the fighting, and the dying, and then the Macedonians do all their moving, fighting, and their dying. Before we get started, I did want to give one good piece of advice, and this was actually told to me by Kev, and I'm glad he did because it did help. This little thing, this Strategagon, whatever they're calling this, for the Fate of All, I had not read this yet. And I would absolutely 100% suggest reading this. And all it is a large example of play. And it goes through all the steps, especially for movement and supply, doing supply checks. And what I really like about this is it does it twice. And now it's talking about the Macedonian movement and basically what their forces going from here over to here and how all of that works. Now they had all of Alexander's forces. I don't, I have just Parmenian, but it still works for our example here. And what they did in their example of play is they took all of Alexander's forces, which was something like 82 size points. So just a huge force, and showed how it would work moving them over here, how it would work conducting a couple of supply checks, because you would have to conduct a couple of supply checks along the way, and then also conducting a supply check at the final location. All right. And then they showed it again with the wiser thing, which is breaking down your forces into smaller groupings because they move faster. This is representing a large swath of territory so that it can accommodate moving multiple groups and them foraging and all that good stuff going on. But by breaking them down into a smaller bite-sized piece, less, they were trying to stay under 30 size points, that allowed them to move faster and to not eat up into all their money and their own supply and cause depletion, the whole nine. Everything works so much better by doing it that way. So I 100% recommend reading that example of play. It will tremendously help you when you are getting started at this game. So I said all that to say this. We're down to this naval assignment step, and I am going to do what they did, which is to set up a naval supply chain. Basically, I am going from our little starting area over here that has a port, this amphitheater, the city begins with A, right, over here. And basically this ship is here, and then I've got a couple of ships over here. And that's 6 size points worth of ships that are doing a transport thing. So what that is doing is I've got the depart counter here. So this shipping is departing from here, and it's going over to here, and it's basically transporting supply. Okay? And there's a table for that, and it allows you to transfer supply points over here, and basically dock them. That way you have them to use later on. Now, I don't think I need as many since Parmenion has a much smaller force. This is like the first forces coming through, but I like it and I want to show it what they had going on in the book here. All right, so there is a sea shipping table. That's this table here. It's next to your foraging table. This one, depending on how many supply ships that you got, the total size will tell you what column that you're going to roll on and how many points that you can receive. Now, I don't need a huge amount since I've got a relatively small force. Honestly, I don't think I need any, but I'll probably put at least one supply point there just to have it, just, in case I need it. So we roll for it. We get an 8, which is more than enough than what I need. That gives me up to 4 supply points. I'm not going to do 4. I will just tick down a single, where's my supply? A single talent to put down 1 supply here at the port. That way it's there, in case I need it as I move my forces along over here. And when they cross, since I have ships here, these ships act as a ferry, so I can pop across, because this is one of those victory cities that I need to get as the Macedonians. I can ferry friendly units back and forth. I want to get those guys across over into this territory. Now, I had not moved the Persians up here. I'm going to be moving them up on the next turn, and we'll have a little battle go on, see what happens. But that gives us the supply point that I wanted, and I'm allowed to move the army. Now, here's the thing. Let me grab my little chart. When we're moving the forces, let me grab it here. When we're moving these forces, we've got this movement table, and it's divided out amongst the army's supply points. Oh, damn, I was 1.2 minus. It doesn't matter. I'm at a good point. It appears like you want to at least shoot for this middle column because it costs less, but I could even get it fewer than it is. When you're looking at this, it's got black and red numbers. The red numbers are for traveling along the Royal Road. So this big brown line over here, which of course we're not traveling across. Now I want to get over to here, cross that ferry, cross over into the area, because all these cities that I need to take as the Macedonians are all over here, right? Bunch of victory point cities. I know that's one, this is one, this is one, this one here, and there's a few more down over here that are victory points. So I need to get over there. And I trigger supply checks at 10 points, 10 movement points, and at 20 movement points. And then at basically the end of the turn, you get a automatic supply check for everyone. That automatic supply check at the end is one you definitely have to plan for as you're moving your troops, which is why I put the supply point there. But we have to count this out, because where you do these supply checks is determined based off of where you've mostly traveled. Now, all of these areas here, that's 666. 666. Yeah, it's not that good there. I just noticed that. All of these are perfectly fine. I don't even need to use my cavalry to check, because we're in the month of April. Right? Month of April reduces our supply by 2. But with these being 6, and a single supply point will cover up to 10 size points of units. Now, it's something you have to make sure you keep straight in your noodle, because there was something that I was throwing off occasionally. Size points and supply points. The supply points feed the size points. 1 supply point is 10 size points. The troops, all right? So when you're looking at, let me grab a counter here. When you're looking at a counter here, that bottom right number, that's the size point of the unit. So this one that I just threw down here, that's a 4 size unit. The counter I have for the Macedonians, I'm just using the army counter, but I know, because I already figured it out, totaled up all the units that are moving, I have 21 points. Now, I wish I had 20 points, because if I had 1 point less, I'd be getting a whole different travel All right, but it doesn't matter. It's not a huge deal because we're going to have plenty of movement points to get where we need to go, and we're going to have more than enough of supply points just foraging to get there. So as we're looking at it here, planes are 1, and it looks like it's mostly planes as we go across here because I am in this city. So if we 1, 2, and then checking there because we are crossing that river. Crossing a river, hex side is plus 1.5. So if that's 1, 2, plus 1.5, so that's 3.5, 4, or no, 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, and then where are we at? Oh, it's throwing me off adding these halves. All right, it was throwing me off as I was counting there for a second, but I forgot that Alexander in his scenario starts back over here, so that's why the movement points were a touch off from what I was thinking. Doesn't matter. I've got up to 30 to spend, so I really just need to look for the 10 and the 20 as I go along, and I think the 10 should probably hit somewhere around here, and I might not even hit the 20. All right, depending on how much that ferry is going to cost. Oh, it's plus 5 points, so I think I'm probably going to hit it there. But it wouldn't matter. Either way, we're going to be all right. So let's count this out. Properly this time. Properly, Gimpy. Count it out properly. 1, 2, buckle my shoe. So it's saying plus 1.5 for the river hex side. And that is open plane. So that's going to be 2.5. So that's going to be 4.5, 5.5, 6.5, 7.5. And that's going to be another 2.5. So that hits 10 right there. 10. And then we're at 11, 12, 13. We don't even hit it. We don't hit 20 because when we cross over, we land right there. So I'm going to have to do 2 supply checks. I have 1 here, and then I do my final one there, but both of them, we will be okay. All right, so let's do this. Let's set my die right there just so I remember. That's where my first supply check was triggered. My army got all the way over to here, used the ferry to cross because there are no enemy forces preventing me from being able to do so. Perfect. All right, yay. Now that means it wouldn't really matter because of where I'm traveling, but I would not use this number. I would use this number because most of my movement points were spent in this region, okay? Even though I crossed over to here for the 10, for that supply check, this is where I hit 10 movement points in this region, but it's actually this region that I'm checking because it's the one that I traveled in the most, right? Makes sense? Perfect. Like I said, we've got 6 supply points. We subtract the 2 for it being April. Once we do that, we're left with 4, okay? 4 is more than enough to cover it. I only need 3 to cover my 21 because that 1 point does have to be fed. Otherwise, you can have attrition and have step losses, which I don't want to have. Regardless, we're still good. I leave 1 point on the table, so I have not eaten more than was there, okay? Adjusting by the month. So effectively, if I had used more supply points than 4, right? The number there adjusted by the month, then, and it's only adjusted by the month, that's when you would add a depletion. I'm not, so I don't have to worry about that. Now, something else that comes into play, and it's not this table. Where is it? It is this table. We can do what's called foraging, and you roll here if you have light cavalry. Now, I've got 3 points of light cavalry. I would be able to roll on this table. Southern's coming through there. I could roll on this table here, right here, as Mr. Alexander moving through. Anyway, I could roll on this table 1 to 3 of cavalry, light cavalry. It has to be specifically light cavalry. And these would be my potential results. Now, since there are no raiding cavalry, that's enemy light cavalry that are getting in my way, trying to stop me from foraging, whatever bonus that I got, which would be a 0, +1, or +2, I would be able to take without having to worry about incurring any losses. However, if the enemy is in range, they can try to harass the friendly forces that are foraging, and they can reduce the forage, or they can incur size point losses to those cavalry. So you do have to take that into consideration. For us, that's not going to matter. I don't even need to roll on this table. There is more than enough supply to cover what I'm doing here. All right, so I'm good. I don't have to worry about feeding the troops. So here's the thing, though. We do, and keep in mind, leaders don't count. You don't have to worry about individual leaders when it comes to supply points. They're just fed. They eat. The leaders made sure that they eat. We're doing our March fight die stuff. I've already moved all the troops, the Macedonian troops that I want to move. Pretty much all I did was set up my shipping, which I did earlier, did the shipping, and then moved all my forces. So all my forces have moved. I'm done. They're outside of this city, and we're going to try to assault that city on the next turn. We're not doing it now. We're just outside that city. We're hanging 10 right now. I do have one final supply check. All right. So as you're moving all your forces during your turn, you're usually not going to have just a single stack. Like I said, this is a starter scenario, smaller forces, easier to work with. But later on, you will have more units on the board. So I would move everyone and do their supply checks. So like this guy, he did supply checks. If I had more stacks, more armies on the board, I would move them, do their supply checks according to whatever they had, right? So if they hit the 10 points of movement, 20 points of movement, do their supply checks. Then once all my moving, my fighting and dying is done, that's when you do the final supply check. Okay. And it's going to be for everyone. So if I had multiple stacks here, multiple armies, all those armies would be counted together. And they show this in the example of play, and I'm glad they show it the way they do because it helps to explain it. But they divided up in their example the stack that was over here into 3 separate forces, each with their own leader, and had them move because they could move faster and consume less resources, and they did not deplete the local regions. But at the end, when they all ended in the same hex, then they all had to be counted. So they were able to move at a size point of 30, but then when they all hit together, then it was a total size point of 82. That's a huge difference, but make sure you keep that in mind. Like I said, it is in that example of play. Definitely read that example of play. It really helped to clarify things for me when I was doing this. But again, we have to do our final supply check. For our final supply check, it's actually not much different than what we already experienced over here. We have a size of 6. We subtract 2 for it being April. Now, remember, that's going to go down. So as we move into April, May, June, that negative modifier gets reduced. During the summer months, it's 0. That's your best months to travel and to attack and to do all your stuff is when you have those favorable modifiers, which is 0. You're not losing any access to anything on the board. It's all there for you. But especially the later fall, winter months, that's when you're getting those bigger modifiers, -2, -3, that really can detract from the board, reduce your supplies, and make it much harder for you to move your forces. You have to spend money doing requisitions, which is buying food from local villages, or doing things like this, where I set up the supply, right? The sea supply run. And that costs money. You only get a very small amount of money, and you have to stretch that out. And it's not just being used for your supply. It's also used to maintain your units and to buy new units. I know that in later turns, I have to use these forces to garrison the areas. I can't just leave them. I can't just take over a city, win, and then have the army, move on. Let me grab it, huh? March across board and just leave that city. I have to garrison it. And I have to garrison every city that I take control of as the Macedonians. So I have to purchase extra units to leave behind. I can't just keep giving up all my forces. Otherwise, I'm not going to have an army. What I mean by all of this is that managing your talents, your money, is an extremely vital aspect of the game. Money you spend to help fund moving your forces, this month won't be available to purchase new units next month. So it's crucial that you make good choices. For our final supply check here, though, like I said, nothing had changed. They are still at 21 size points. The area that we are in is 6. So here we're definitely going to count where we're at. Doesn't matter the movement that we've done. It's just wherever the zone is that we are in. There are friendly cities. This city here, Sestos, does count as an adjacent friendly city for me to requisition since I am ferrying and there is supply points in that city. But I'm not going to use them because, again, I only need 3 supply points to feed all of my forces. All right, 21 points, I'm good. I don't have to worry about any foraging, any light cavalry. I could do the light cavalry to increase it, but there's no reason to risk depleting this area yet since I'm more than covered. So I'm good. I'm not going to worry about it. Foraging is more than enough to take care of this force here. So we'll mark them as moved, and that actually takes care of our first turn. I know you didn't get to see a whole lot of the Persians, but I'm going to show them on the following turn when I've got a better idea of what they're doing. I'm probably going to consolidate them up over here somewhere and then maybe move over against the Macedonians. It depends on how many forces I can get where. The Persians do have access to a good amount of forces in their force pool, units that I could purchase to bring on to help in the fight. So I have to decide how much money am I going to use towards reinforcing the local forces that are on the board. But if I can get some of these guys bunched up together and make an attack on the Macedonians, or maybe get to an area that I know they're going to go and garrison into one of these cities, maybe I'll go that route. And just to show you guys, here on the back of this force costs table, it tells you your maintenance and your raise cost. So for things like a phalanx or a hoplite, you're looking at 1 talent for just 2 size points. I mean, that's expensive. Raising up ships is very expensive. The biggest ship is 2 talents per 1 size point. It just depends on the forces. Light infantry, skirmishers, you get 1 talent for 4 size points. Smaller forces like your light infantry, your skirmishers, it's 1 talent for 4 size points worth, so you can get a lot of those guys. Cavalry is obviously going to cost you, but remember, this is your raise cost. We also have to worry about our maintenance costs for our different units. So we got to pay for the ones we got on the board, and we got to pay to put new ones onto the board. So there's a little give and take going on with that, and I got to decide, what do I need for each one of these forces. The Persians and the Macedonians both trying to accomplish their goal. The Persians get to fight a little more defensively. They don't have to take anything. They don't have to do any sieges. They just have to keep the Macedonians from invading and taking control. But anyway, that's going to be it for this one. We're going to end here, and I will pick up with the next turn, and we'll do some recruiting and see if we can get a battle going on, maybe a siege or 2 or something along those lines. All right. Hope you guys are all right. Y'all take care, and I will catch you in the next one.